still morning.
We're not used to getting
I'm used to waking up in the evening.
Uh-huh. You guys that play music at night. Mickey, it's good to have you here in our studios. It's the first time, and we haven't talked to you in some years. As a matter of fact, the last time I talked to you was down in Texas, and we hadn't even had the Roses yet.
Well, I tell you what, I struggled for a long time, in the music field, 14 years to be exact. And then when Roomful of Roses came along, I was in total shock. So after working all that time in the music field, it's incredible, how everything turned around on account of the one record began to do real well for me.
I'm from Texas, and I know that you can be a star in Texas, and you cross the border into Louisiana or New Mexico.
Nobody knows who you are.
That's right, and you're a big star in Texas. And that was Nat Stuckey's story. It was your story, Paul and Paula, until they popped out.
There's been quite a few people. B.J. Thomas was a star there in the Houston area. Kenny Rogers, which a lot of people probably don't know, was right there in Houston. Roy Head had Frida Wright. So there's been quite a few people that came out of the Houston area that have done quite well in the later years. But we all were struggling there for a long time, and I was wondering if I was going to ever get out of it.
Did Roomful of Roses, wasn't that originally done by George Morgan?
Yes, it was. Roses was cut, really, it was an accident that I recorded it, because I had been in Nashville recording many, many songs and thinking that I was on the right path, because everybody tried to compare me with Jerry Lee, and so I would go to Nashville and I'd do my recording. But a lady asked me to do, she called me Baby All Night Long, and as everybody knows, a record has two sides. So on the other side, we cut Roomful of Roses. Now, that was supposed to be the B-side. But when I released the record, I really thought at the time Roomful of Roses didn't sound as good as it should, so I asked them to play Roomful of Roses to see what the jocks would say to me, and one of them listened to it, and they said, sure, we'll play it. And I was in really total shock, But then the record started to play, and people started requesting it and started buying it, and it was, as I look back on it now, I know what happened. It was because that I was very relaxed. I didn't care, I had my nightclub going real well, and so everything was running smooth for me. I was playing golf 3 days a week and flying my airplane on the weekends, and it was that type of situation. So I had relaxed. Usually when I'd go in a recording studio, I'd just tighten up, and you try too hard sometimes. I guess you can do that in any kind of business.
I want to talk about that club, your relationship with your cousin, Jerry Lee Lewis. And after Roomful of Roses, you stayed with the Flowers, didn't you?
Tried to.
That's Mickey Gilley. And that was the second one it did the... usually a song like Roomful of Roses, and if it's a kind of a first outing, a national hit goes zoop, right to number one, scares you to death, doesn't it?
Well, that's very true. The record was an incredible record for me because, for one thing, it had so many strikes against it before it was ever released. I had released it locally in Houston, Texas, on a local label that I controlled, and I released it. The record started doing real well. I came to Nashville and tried to get a major company to release it, and they looked at me like I was some kind of a nut, I was hollering, hit, and they was hollering, it's a hype, and that's the way the music business is as a whole. But it just so happened that the people out on the coast were real active in trying to build a record company called Playboy Records, which was owned by Hugh Hefner.
Which you built.
Well, I helped them because I give them, I give them a hit single to start with, and then the next thing I knew, we were on the road as far as having, hits in the country field, but they kept trying to cross over and get in the pop field so much until they finally got CBS to distribute the line. The next thing I knew, they said they were going out of business. They were just losing too much money with it. So I was the only artist that was selling for them. But I thought they did a great job for Mickey Gilley, and I'm glad now that I went with Playboy, because had I been with a major company, I don't think that I would have gotten the attention that I got by being with an independent label.
You're Jerry Lee Lewis's cousin, and I want to talk about that in a moment, okay?
Okay.
We're just sitting here chatting on the Midwest Town Countdown with Mickey Gilley. And, of course, we have to, there's one thing we have to bring out, and that's your relationship with Jerry Lee. And because basically both of you began, you're doing the same thing. Did you start in gospel music?
Walter, I'll tell you, I have two famous cousins. One of them is Jimmy Swaggart.
Yeah.
Now, he's an evangelistic minister, and I know that a lot of people really love this guy because I think he does an incredible job. And, of course, everybody is familiar with Jerry Lee Lewis because of all the things that he gets involved with and the things that he does. He draws real big because everybody comes out to see what he's going to do next. Now, I'm trying to walk the middle of the road. Now, I'm trying to get in between both of them. So we grew up in a little town called Faraday, Louisiana, down in right across the river from Natchez, Mississippi, if that gives anybody a clue to where it's at. And we went to the Assembly of God Church. We played piano. I first started out playing guitar. I did a little rhythm guitar. And I used to sing a little bit with my mother, and then every now and then we'd sing with, the guys would get together and sing a few songs. But the most incredible thing about my situation in music is when I first got interested in the music thing, and I don't know how many people saw it, but Jerry Lee and I were on Pop Goes the Country not too long ago on the Ralph Emery show.
Right.
And we did some of the tunes that we did when we were kids growing up, like Shannon Old Shantytown, 5'2", Don't Be Ashamed of Your Age, and, some of the older songs. But Jerry Lee used to have a radio show that he would do, and he had to do it live. They had a piano in the little control room, and I would take a guitar over, and it was sponsored by the Lewis Food Market in Natchez, Mississippi. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the call letters was WNAT or WMIS, and it was one of those stations there. And we used to do a little country segment thing, a couple of songs, and he would harmonize with me when we'd do some things together. But that was when we were kids growing up. But I really never thought that much about the music business until Jerry Lee hit with a whole lot of shaking. And that's when I threw my hat in the ring. And, of course, everybody says, we got one Jerry Lee Lewis, we don't need another one. So I was left, just to play clubs and things. I did real well in clubs because I could do a lot of Jerry's music. And I admired what he was doing. I learned his songs, and the people would request them because they loved the guy, And I became very successful in the club work due to the fact that I could do Jerry Lee. I never tried to do Jimmy Swaggart because he's in the evangelistic field, and I didn't want to be singing the old rugged cross and the honky tonk.
Right. Speaking of honky tonks, you told me one time, and we were on the phone, and we were talking about Gilley's down there, and you said, well, it's just a big old honky tonk. But that big old honky tonk all of a sudden has made some of the top I opened an Esquire magazine just the other day, and there you were again. There was Gilley.
Well, we had a guy come down, and he did an article on the club, and from this particular article, we have a movie now being shot called The Urban Cowboy. And guess who it stars? The one and only John Travolta.
Uh-huh.
And I'm excited about it because of the fact that if he does as much for country music as he did for disco. And he made the statement that he thought that country music would be the next big thing. And, of course, not that it's not big now, but I would like to see it get the publicity that it deserves that disco got, because, to me, country music has a message. And some of the other music that I listen to, because of my son will play some songs that he likes, and it don't really, do that much for me. But country music usually has things in it about everyday life, and that's what I enjoy so much.
I think people listening to a lot of other songs, and I know this for a fact because there was a song on the radio when we were down in Nashville. Somebody was with me who listens to all kinds, and I listen to all kinds of music.
Well, I do too.
But all of a sudden some words came out, and I said, did you hear that? And she said, no, that's not in there. And I said, yes, it is. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I can't.
You can't.
And she said, well, the next time that comes on, let's really listen. And sure enough, it's there. But country music, each one is a little soap opera. And I think you listen to the words.
That's very true. It's about everyday life. And I think that's what's going to make country music a big thing, because, it's becoming more sophisticated now. It's not the old country music like it used to be. It's about everyday life, and that's what I enjoy about it so much.
It's kind of like things like the song We Made Love To, as a matter of fact.
That's one of my favorite tunes, and I was disappointed because it didn't do any better for Mickey Gilley, but I still think it's one of my better recordings.
We're going to indulge ourselves right now, okay?
Oh, super.
Mickey Gilley on the Midwest Sound Countdown at WIL and the song We Made Love To. On the Midwest Sound Countdown, we're taking time out from music by the numbers and the survey for Mickey Gilley, who's with us in the studio. And, Mickey, we're going to take a break, Paul Harvey, and then we're going to come back with you.
Oh, I like Paul Harvey. I love to listen to him. Keep him up in here, too.
We've got a lot of things to talk about, and we want to hear just long enough to say goodbye. Maybe you got a story behind that for us.
Got a new album coming out I'll tell the folks about, too, and a new single coming out I think you'll enjoy.
Talk about that movie that they're going to film at Gilley's. It hit me when you said John Travolta is in there because Waylon Jennings is, too.
That's very true. Waylon's doing a soundtrack. I saw where that he had signed. So there's going to be, the Eagles are supposed to do a soundtrack for it, too.
Mickey Gilley, Walter Vaughn, the Midwest Sound Countdown at WIL 1430 St. Louis, 12 noon.
Hello, America.
From the studios of WIL St. Louis, this is Walter Vaughn with the Midwest Sound Countdown. Special guest, Mickey Gilley in our studio. Later, the Oak Ridge Boys. And the feature album, America, Why I Love Her, from John Wayne. Music by the numbers. But first of all, special guest Mickey Gilley. Thought that'd be a good kickoff, Mickey.
Well, you know, my producer, when we were doing all these records, I had a habit of going, hup, hup, hup. He used to ask me one time, he says, did you have some sort of secret ambition to be a quarterback?
Did you ever play football down there in Louisiana?
No, I was too small. I only got this big since I got to lay around the house a little bit.
I limp. You know, if you're from Texas or down south somewhere, and you're my size that I was in high school, then you play football, right?
Well, I tell you what, I am really on a diet now so that I can get my weight down for this film, because I got quite a bit of part in it with Travolta, and I'm really looking forward to it because I think it's going to really boost my career as far as country music is concerned.
I wondered who else was in that motion picture, the Urban Cowboys. Waylon Jennings, you're in it. Right?
Waylon's going to be in it, and of course our house group, they're going to do some shots with the house group, which don't really mean that much to the folks around our area here, but Johnny Lee, who is going to have a new single released very shortly called The Cherokee Fiddle, and he had a big record not about a year ago called Country Party. I don't know whether y'all played it, but it was a good record for him. And he's now traveling with me on the road. So the Eagles are going to do a soundtrack for it, and I understand that Linda Ronstadt is supposed to do some parts for the movie. I don't know whether they're going to actually get Dolly to do anything in the movie, but they told me that they were going to use some of her music. So I know that we are having a Dolly Parton lookalike contest in the movie, and I'm going to be something similar to Burt Parks. You know, I'm going to be emceeing the thing.
That's fun. We had one of those here.
Did you? But you had a big turnout too.
Yeah, the Dick Clark thing, you know, and then Dick Clark had our winner here and a number of winners from other parts of the country out on his Dick Clark live show.
Yeah, well, we really had some dolls at Gilley's.
Speaking of live shows,
you believe that? You believe anything?
Have some dolls,
and dolls,
foxes, and otherwise.
Right.
But you know, you put 4,000 people in that place, you're bound to have.
Yeah, the girls do get pretty at closing time, don't they? You remember that?
That was a good song too. Speaking of live shows, you're at the Barn Dinner Theater tonight and tomorrow.
Right. We're doing one show tonight, and we did. Let's see. Well, we worked there last night, and we're working there tonight, and then Sunday afternoon we're doing a performance, and then Sunday night we're doing a performance. So the folks have got a double shot at us, or let's put it like this: maybe we got a double shot at them.
Go out there and you have dinner and the show, and it's all one price, and that's Barn Dinner Theater. And then you're going to leave here, and you're going over to Roberts Ford?
We're going to a Ford dealership. Now, I'm not too familiar with St. Louis, so I hope that somebody gives me a CNI dog.
You'll be there for a little bit. And down in your back a little bit, but that's...
I was playing ping pong with my fiddle player, and evidently I must have turned the wrong way because I dropped to the floor, and I was crawling around the studio. And I haven't fully recovered from it yet, but I'm here, and I feel pretty good right now. Maybe if I take a little nip or something, it might break it loose.
And I'm sure you'll have a chance to do that. Now, where do you go from here? What's ahead of you?
Well, we're going back to Houston because of, I should say Pasadena. You know, I have a recording studio built right beside of my club. And we're doing soundtracks now for the movie, and my group has had the pleasure of working on most of it, which I'm excited about. Monday night, my dear friend Johnny Lee, who's traveling with me, hopefully he will do the national anthem for the Astros game there in the Astrodome. They're working on it. I don't know whether it's all going to come through, but they're definitely going to do a performance between the doubleheader. So whether it's televised any of it, I really don't know. And then we go to the Austin Opry House on, the following Friday, and then we end up in Tulsa, Oklahoma on Saturday, next week.
Tulsa's not a bad place to be on Saturday.
You got that right.
Say hello to everybody in Tulsa. Was there any kind of story behind Just Long Enough to Say Goodbye? Because the words in that song are as strong as any I've ever heard.
Well, this song was presented to me by Jerry Foster and Bill Rice. And Bill Rice has been producing most of my albums here lately. I happen to like the song. We went through it to give it a try, and I thought it came off real well. And it is really, really a pretty song, but I always get into a song that has a lot of meaning to it. I mean, I try to anyway because I've lived part of these things that I do.
Yeah, I think we all have. And, Jerry Foster and Bill Rice, very familiar here in St. Louis.
Very good writers.
Yeah, super. And I think Rice is from Arkansas and Jerry Foster is from right down the road here. So.
Yeah, and I've been knowing them since 1962. We have a new single now that's going to follow this one out called A Silver Lining. It was written by Roger Murrah and his sister Tina. And I think that it's going to be a good record for me because it's up-tempo, and I know how you guys like to play a fast song every now and then. So it's going to have a little jive to it.
Jerry Lee Lewis's cousin, Mickey Gilley.
That's okay.
I was going to ask you another question about Jerry Lee, and I can't think of what it was, so it wasn't important. But that stuck in my mind. But Mickey Gilley, it's nice to have you here on the Midwest Sound Countdown. We thank you for spending the time with us. And we'll look for Silver Lining, and more than likely it'll be a prediction of a future hit.
Well, I certainly hope so, because I would like to get back in the #1 slot, because the last two records didn't do as well for me as I'd hoped for. So, what do they say? I'm not asking, I'm begging from the blessed back of you.
Mickey Gilley on the Midwest Sound Countdown at WIL. Thanks for being with us, Mickey.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Special guest Mickey Gilley. Later on the countdown, the Oak Ridge Boys. Music by the numbers as we get back to the survey songs with number 26 on the way in a moment.
Hi, everybody. This is Davey Lee at the brand new Tile Town, Carpet City, 1136 Manchester, Ellisville. We're out here celebrating a grand opening of this beautiful store. Be here till 4 this afternoon. And listen, we've got a grass carpet sale, regularly $3.99 a square yard. You save $1.50 a square yard and get it for $2.49. And don't forget, we've got an installed carpet.